Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK. I'm the president, founder, and chief listening officer here at our network. We currently have 29 live broadcasts each and every week, so you can watch us on TV, you can listen to us on the radio, you can take us with you as a podcast. Our show today is The Listening Mentor, and our topic is red flags in relationships, what to look out for. I am excited to bring my co-host and star of our show, Caroline HEWARD. She is the Harley Street stress expert, and she joins us from London. Hello, Caroline. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Lovely to see you. It's
Lovely
Friday at 7 o'clock. It's our time.
Exactly. So, Caroline, I'm excited for this topic because I certainly know that there have been many red flags when I've been in relationships, and I just be like, I don't see the red, or I'll take that red flag down and I'll make it into a white flag. Everything's going to be bright and great, but that's not what happened. Before we get into the topic, I'd love for you to share with people joining us for the first time and people coming back week after week after week. How do you help people bust their stress, number one? And number two, what are people typically complaining about when they come to see you?
Most people that call me have problems with physical aches and pains, like neck pain, back pain, sleep problems. They might have emotional problems like sadness, loneliness, heartache, or they might have relationship issues, bereavement issues, or anger management issues. So it's whatever they're complaining about, and I get it all. I get a gamut of people calling for all sorts of reasons. And it's usually whatever is not working in their life. Could be work, relationships, personal, family, it doesn't matter. We all have stress. How I help them is identify root cause. I actually work with root cause therapy. So whatever is the root cause of that specific ailment, where it first started, the initial starting point, not the recent starting point, but the initial starting point, and that's where I work, to literally obliterate the repeating pattern over and over again, so it literally leaves you. You can reach me on email, NoMoreStress@live.co.uk, to arrange a booking for your free 30-minute stress buster consultation online.
Thank you, Caroline. I appreciate you sharing that information and letting people know how they reach out and get some help. All right, speaking of getting help, those dreaded red flags that come up in a relationship, especially if it's a blind date or maybe somebody we met on the internet, we get together with them for that first initial date, and within 5 minutes of the conversation, there's red flying all over the place. But we think to ourselves, I can change this, or this isn't such a big deal, or he probably didn't mean that when he said that. What is your experience with red flags personally, Caroline?
Oh, personally. I usually feel uncomfortable. There's like an uncomfortable feeling. And usually I get it in the stomach. I get kind of a knot in the stomach of things not working out. And it makes me feel anxious. It makes me feel nervous, and it makes me feel on edge. And when I have that experience, it's far from being a happy experience. It's more like I'm getting myself prepared to be hurt, or for them to be, sort of inappropriate towards me. But there's like something that doesn't feel right. It kind of feels, I kind of call it feeling off, that you can't put your finger on it, but my stomach tells me and my whole being tells me that there's something not right.
When you feel this way, do you think it's your intuition, or do you think you have a stomach ache?
Oh, you got some good ones tonight. Underneath it all, I know there's something that's not right, and I choose to ignore it. And that's a fair comment to make, that even though something doesn't feel right, I kind of pass it off and say, oh, it's probably just me, so I'm probably just a bit nervous. But usually I'm right in thinking there's something not right, but I kind of ignore that feeling, that intuitional feeling of there's something not right about this. It's a bit like, I can share with you, sometimes I look at the umbrella and I feel, because I live in England, I look at the umbrella and I think, I won't need it. I go out and it pours down with rain, and I thought, you know what, I should just listen. Because if I just listened and picked it up when I saw it, and I had that conversation, and this is how it works. That's kind of a very whimsical example of the intuition. I'm never usually wrong when, I kind of look at the brother, oh no, I won't carry it, it's too heavy, I'll leave it, and then I need it. And it's that inner knowing, that inner feeling that there's something that's not quite right.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. And have you ever been in a situation, maybe you're meeting with some friends, and one friend starts to tell a story about someone they recently started dating, and the hair on the back of your neck starts to stand up, and you're starting to think to yourself, no judgment, but don't they realize something is off here? But yet they don't realize something's off, and they're making excuses. I mean, I'll give a personal example. I dated, this could fit for more than one person, I'm just going to say in general. And person not available, doesn't return phone calls for like a certain amount of time. No explanation when they finally resurface as to where they were. In fact, gets very angry. Why are you asking me these questions? Like gave some kind of excuse that you could, you knew it wasn't correct. In the meantime, you were calling the hospitals, you were calling the police department, you were convinced that it couldn't be that the person might be seeing someone else, or that the person just wasn't that interested in you. It had to be that they were in a hideous accident and they could not have use of their hands to actually dial a phone or call you. Does this sound like anything you've ever heard of from anyone?
Well, I've experienced that myself, and I want to share with you this story that what I did was, I had this lovely guy. He was quite young, and we'd been seeing each other probably once a week, and he had his own business. It was a plumbing business. And so sometimes, he worked long hours, and sometimes it wasn't available, and he would cancel last minute. And I really got that. And then he was really making an effort, saying, oh, I really like you. And he says, I really want to see a bit more. And then we arranged to see each other. And he said, oh, I'm going on holiday. I hope you don't mind. So I said, no, you have fun. So he went off on holiday to Spain. He said, I'll make it up to you when I come back. And I didn't hear a thing. Not a thing. And I dropped messages, and I just thought, this is just really odd. I didn't hear anything for a year. I even put a poll on Facebook saying, why would a guy just suddenly go quiet? And then I got people feeding back on the poll saying, oh, he's just like, he's given up, he's found someone else, he's probably hooked up with someone, he's bored with you. And anyway, he eventually called me, and it was a year later, and he said, I'm really sorry I've not been in touch. I said, yeah, what happened? And then he told me that he got skin cancer when he went away on holiday, And he said he felt really embarrassed, and he'd only just got over it, which was a year later. And so I knew that I hadn't done anything wrong. I knew in my whole inner being that there was nothing that was going on in my world, and I knew there was something that perhaps was going on in his world, and it was nothing to do with me. And this is something that happens, that it's not always about you. It could be something going on in the other person's world. Family sickness, they're not well, job changes, difficulty in terms of getting in touch because they're overly working. We don't know. And I did kind of get quite anxious about it. And then I gave up, and I just thought, maybe he's just found someone else. And I felt awful when I found out that he was really ill. And we did see each other again, but it wasn't the same because he was very conscious about the scarring that he got because of the skin cancer. And so I never judge ever now. I just think maybe there's something going on in their world.
All right. I'm thinking about what you shared. I know you've shared this before, and of course, I have a different perspective on it. But my perspective is, and obviously it's very sad that your friend had to go through that. My perspective is a simple phone call, a text message, anything in the course of a year would have saved you a tremendous amount of pain and concern and wondering. And so to me, I feel like, okay, whatever can happen, we're not going to judge anyone for whatever is going to happen or did happen, but they didn't contact you, and that caused you pain.
He was very young.
That's what I'm saying. We start making excuses. It could be this, it could be that. And the bottom line is we'll never really know. What we do know is that he did not contact you, and that you were hurt.
Well, I was worried, and I thought, well, maybe he's just found someone else. And then I just kind of dropped it. And I did kind of think he was over the top, really swearing on dying love almost to me. And then nothing. It was quite a long time ago, and he was very young. I was literally 20 years older than him. And, but, that was the... So I just thought that maybe he was just, out with his friends, found someone else, having a good time, and he just forgot. And I kind of just left it at that, in that space. I didn't get overly wrought, but I did think it was odd. And there is, I hear what you're saying. And at the same time, we don't know what's going on in the other person's world. And if somebody's just not responding, literally not responding, it does give a red flag. And I've heard of this term recently called ghosting, where somebody ghosts you. And I actually asked in a forum, what do you mean by ghosting? And it's exactly what it sounds like, that you're sending messages, leaving voice messages, dropping emails, and they're just not responding to you. Like it's just like you dropped off the face of the earth. And I says, oh, right, that has happened to me before now. Ghosting, is that what the term is?
Yes, it's definitely ghosting. And that's the whole thing. We're not judging anyone for whatever their reason is. But to me, that is a major red flag when someone just disappears and doesn't get in touch with you. And again, that's why I'm saying, like, did they lose use of their hands? Could they ask someone else to make the call? And I had something happen to me, and I shared this before, but I think it warrants it again. It was New Year's Eve. I was seeing someone for a long time. The person was part of my life, part of my family. Everybody knew the person. And we lived about an hour apart at this time. We had lived together at one point. But anyway, the person called and on their way to come pick me up, and I'm in my gown and I'm all ready to go. And the person never showed up. It was like 2 hours before they're supposed to pick me up, never showed up. So of course, it's New Year's Eve. You think the person's driving, anything could happen. And it was early because we hadn't gone out to dinner yet. And so call the phone, like every way I possibly could to contact the person. And there was nothing. So I finally decided that this had to be some kind of tragedy that happened. And I got in the car, dressed up in my gown, drove to his house. One of his family members was there and said that no idea where this person was, that the person had gone out. But interestingly enough, the person had given this family member a new phone number because the person got a new phone and apparently gave the number to the family member, but not to me. So I said to the family member, and the family member was upset for me, saw I was in my gown, I was all dressed up. It was New Year's Eve. And so the person said, I'm going to go make a call. So goes into the other room and calls this person because they have the person on speakerphone. I hear the conversation and the other person says, the guy I'm seeing, just get rid of her. I'll figure it out.
Oh.
And there I am, like a complete idiot in the gown on New Year's Eve, being dumped by someone I've been seeing for years. And I couldn't believe it that this could be happening. So I ended up going to the restaurant by myself, like an idiot loser. I thought, no, I'm just going to go. And when the person resurfaced, which wasn't for a few days, they would not discuss New Year's Eve whatsoever. That something came up and didn't want to get into it. And I said, I know what came up. You went out with somebody else. You had a date with someone else. And I promise you, I will find out in the future. Maybe not today, but at some point, these things always turn up. You can only hide it for so long. But my point is, that was a red flag, right? There were red flags all over the place. And yet I kept thinking there was some kind of emergency. And there it was, right there on the phone, on the speaker. Just get rid of her. I'll explain it to her later.
Gosh, whoa. That's quite harsh on New Year's.
Yeah, believe me, I could give you stories, but yeah, those stories are all over because I've seen the red flags. I've seen a parade of red flags, and I am quite alert now. So my point is to other people who are out there watching or listening, these red flags do show up. It doesn't have to get to an extreme of what we're talking about here today. But if you're in a conversation with someone you've met online and there's certain information they don't want to give you, or there's certain ways they're behaving that they seem quite jittery or nervous, maybe there's something going on and you can ask them directly. And maybe it's a red flag that they're not the right person for you.
I did a long time ago. I did used to see somebody that he was quite a tall man, and he would talk to me, and he would talk to me over here, above my head, and I remember sort of feeling very uncomfortable. I was quite an eye contact person, and so I'm kind of, even though I'm small, I'm only 5'2", I was sort of looking up, and he was always looking above me. And I thought, well, surely you would look down because I'm so small.
What or something.
I'm looking up, but I would have thought he would have been looking down because I definitely wasn't taller than him. And I mentioned it to him one evening, and I just said, why do you never look at me? Why is it that you always look above me? I says, your eyes are above my head. It's weird. I says, I'm a small person. Why are you looking above me? And it was fascinating what he came out with. And it was shocking at the same time. He actually said that he sold block paving or house cladding. That was it, which is a very expensive thing to, put on houses. And he said that he just found that he couldn't look people in the eye because he knew he was tying people up for a very large investment for many years that they didn't really need. And I said, oh, right. And he says, and now I just look above people's heads. So if I'm not looking in their eyes, then, I don't feel like I'm conning them. And I just thought it was like the strangest reason. And I just said, oh, my gosh, why don't you find another job? And when I asked him why he was looking at me like that, he says, well, I've just got stuck like that. Because I'm not very tall, and he was over 6 foot.
So oh my gosh. So basically he was saying he's a con artist.
Well, sort of I don't know. I suppose so. There's all types of jobs, and from his perspective, he wasn't comfortable in that job because he was selling something he knew would tie people up in a huge investment for many years that perhaps they didn't really need to.
What if
So,
they really wanted it, or the buyer has to make a decision. The buyer's responsible and accountable for their decision. So it sounds like he was in the wrong line of work. But
well,
yeah, imagine you being in a relationship with someone who could never look at you. That seems like that's definitely a red flag for sure. I
well,
have another one. This was not me. This was a friend of mine. This person, a woman, she actually had met this gentleman in business. They knew each other for years. I think they both were married. They both got divorced and they started reconnecting. And this is long before the pandemic when we were on Zoom. But they started meeting on Zoom because they lived in different states. So they were dating for years. So when I saw her, I said, "How's it going with this person?" She said, "Oh, it's really going well. I think we're actually going to get together." And I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, we've never gotten together like in person together." And I said, "You just mean on the computer?" She said, "Yes." And I said, "Do you think that seems strange? Like something might be amiss?" And she said, "Well, what could it possibly be?" And I said, "I don't know. Maybe he's with someone else. Do you ever think that that could be a possibility? Because he never wants to meet with you." So anyway, they made plans to meet and he canceled at the last minute. And to this day, I still think there was something going on. Could you imagine if you had a relationship, Caroline, and the person would never meet with you in person?
yes, I have actually had experiences like that, and
How did I know that? Tell
I
us
just
more.
got very cross. I just turned around and said, just if you can't meet me, if you're not bothered to meet me, then literally I'm not interested. I can't do this, sort of on the phone, online thing, but some people are comfortable in that place. Some people are very comfortable to be on the screen or in a call and be in an online conversation with you for hours and hours. But when it comes to literally meeting, that's when they have their challenges. But I think I was spending hours and hours with this particular person. And I kept saying, well, when are we going to meet then? And he just kept changing the subject. And, it wasn't for me. Some people are very comfortable in that kind of a relationship. But definitely, I'm not an online, sort of over the phone only person. I need to see them in the flesh.
Well, yes. And again, people have different preferences and comfort zones. I think probably now, as a result of the pandemic, there are more relationships that are online, and maybe people are conversing with someone who's halfway across the world. But at the time, this was very unusual because people were not doing this as much as they are today. So back to our subject about red flags. Let's say you identify a red flag. You're on a first date, a second date, a third date, whatever it is, and you've been uncomfortable about something that keeps coming up. For example, the person continuously is looking at their phone, and you say to yourself, I had this happen. I think one of the last dates that I was on, I said to the guy, "What is up with the phone?" And he said, "Well, I've got a lot of really nice pictures in here and I'm looking at them." And I said, "Okay, why don't you spend the rest of the night looking at your pictures because I'm leaving." And he called me a couple of names. I said, "Oh, now we're name calling. So now you want to look at your phone and now you're insulting me." And I said, "It's just not going to work." So he put the phone down, and then I think he was addicted to the phone. And then maybe 5-10 minutes later, he picked up the phone again and asked me if he could show me the pictures. So he started showing me the pictures, and now we're into like 40 or 50 pictures. And I'm not even that interested in you. Why do I want to look at your pictures? So to me, that was a red flag, and that was the end of that. Or another red flag is when someone comes to meet you and they're drunk or they're high or they're on something, like they had to do something in order just to meet you. Have you ever had that?
No, I don't think I have.
Not too late, Caroline. No,
Sorry?
not too late.
Well, if they were off it, I would just walk out. I wouldn't stay there. If they were drunk, I just wouldn't want to be sitting there in that person's company. I think it's okay if you land up getting drunk together. That's a little different. But, you know, I certainly wouldn't put up with somebody rocking up drunk. That wouldn't
Exactly. And another red flag is when they continuously talk about their past relationships. And you're kind of like, okay, I've heard about your ex. I've heard of it. It just keep going on and on and on. To me, that's someone who's not, they have more work to do on themselves. And that's a red flag. What can you think of as red flags in a personal relationship?
When you're suggesting things, like sort of things to do, and they're not responding, they're literally going silent. You know, so, oh, should we go to the pictures this weekend? And nothing. Oh, should we go bowling? Nothing. And it's when they're literally not responding, when they are not answering, and so you're coming up with lots of different ideas of something to do or holidays, and there's a no response. There's just a no response mechanism.
Like as though your ideas don't matter.
Yeah. And I certainly have been in that kind of a situation when I was suggesting things, and in the end I turned around and I said, well, what would you like to do? Where would you like to go? Because all my suggestions seem to be falling on deaf ears and you don't seem very interested. So tell me what you would like to do. And because I did have that experience, I now tend to err on the side of caution and ask the other person, you know, what they would like to do. Now, if they tell me they'd like to take me out for a pizza, then I will turn around and say, that's not my thing, because I'm not a pizza girl. You know, it's that, you know, I sort of need to know where they're going. And also it's about their budget as well. You know, they might only have the money for a drink, you know, or for a pizza. So I don't want to say, let's go for a French meal, because that might be completely out of their budget. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I like to allow the man to take the lead, and then I go in and say, yeah, that sounds lovely, or oh, I'm not so keen on that kind of food, or, you know, what about this, you know, and get into a conversation, you know, that sort of there's ideas flowing. But now, because of the experience that I had, I always ask the other person, because there might be reasons why they're not saying anything. You know, they might be silent because it's not their thing and they don't want to say, you know, they don't want to look like they're upsetting you, so they just say nothing.
Right. But in the meantime, it still upset you because it felt like your ideas were falling on deaf ears. And I had a similar situation, but not in that in one relationship, I was always asked, or I was told, listen, I want to make you happy. I want to do what you want to do. What do you want to do tonight? Well, I'd really like to do XYZ. What, are you kidding me? I'm not doing that. Okay, well, how about this? No, we're going to do this because this is what I want to do. I'm like, well, why'd you ask in the first place? Why do I have to go through this all the time? I know you're not going to do what I want to do. It's like a huge red flag. Like people are marching down the street going, hello, can you wake up and see the red flags? Now, what about if you're just starting to date someone, maybe it's the first date, second, third, and they forgot their wallet?
Oh, that one.
Isn't it funny? You're in England, I'm here in the States, and it's the same thing. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. The old, I forgot my wallet. Can you pick this one up?
Well, yes, and that's happened to me, and yes, I have. Luckily, I've either had my card or some cash, and it's been okay. And you know, when it is okay, it's okay. Especially if I've seen them a little bit, you know, and then I'll just say, well, the next one's on you, you know, and do it that way. But yes, sometimes it's a bit disconcerting. So I always carry enough cash to make sure that if that ever happens, I'm okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's smart. That's smart. I have another story. We could stay here all day. I was meeting someone, I think it was from Match, one of those sites, and we were about 3 hours apart, and we'd spoken on the phone numerous times. And I thought to myself, there's no way this is working out because I am not going to be driving 3 hours. Okay. I'm not driving 3 hours because I don't have the time. It's not something that I want to do. So the guy insists. So we meet at a restaurant. I'm dressed to the nines. I got there a little early, got a booth. I had my computer out. I was doing some work because I got there early. So this person approaches the table with the server, and I'm thinking, this cannot be the guy, cannot be the guy, because this person doesn't look anything like the picture. And anyway, it was the guy. And he showed up in those sweatpants with the elastic around the waist and elastic around the ankle. And then he had on these like dirty sneakers and a sweatshirt. And I didn't say anything. I wasn't judging, but he looked like he just got out of bed and jumped into the car. And as it turns out, that's exactly what happened because he overslept. So he told me he literally jumped out of bed, put on his sweats, and got in the car and drove. So I'm thinking to myself, well, it's nice that he wanted to be on time, but he could have just called and said, I'm going to be half an hour late because I'm going to take a shower. Imagine that, showering before the and it just got worse from there. The whole conversation was about him and all these issues that he had. And then at the end, he asked me for a loan. So that was a complete disaster, red flag.
I remember, I'm going to share this with you because it is really funny. It was when I was quite young, and there was a lovely, good-looking guy that asked me for a date. And like he was the man about town, tall, dark hair, the little moustache. He was just really, really, sort of gorgeous looking, and everybody wanted to date him. And so he asked me for this date, and it was on a Monday night at this local pub that was not very far away, and it was called the Dingle. And so he met me, picked me up, and that was all very nice. He looked really smart. He was very much the man about town, so he did look suave, and he did look, very groomed. And then we got to the bar and we sat. He said, let's sit here. And we sat on two stools, those very high stools. Mm-hmm. So sat on these stools, and he said, I want you to sit so that you're facing out into the pub. And I said, why? He said, I kid you not.
I can't wait to hear this one.
And I said, why? And so I tried to strike up some conversation because, I'm a bit sociable.
Wait, did you have your back to him? Were you facing out?
I was literally, I had my back to the bar and was facing out to the pub.
And he was facing in?
And he was the same. Okay. So we were both sitting with our back to the bar, but our face to the pub. So we weren't facing each other.
Okay.
And so when I was trying to talk to him and get a response, he said, don't talk to me. He said, I have an image to keep up. Sorry. And I kid you not, it was the most hilarious date that I'd ever had. But he was like, to get a date with this guy, it was just, he was the man. He was like sort of the dream to be, asked out by him. And he had all the girls swooning after him. So, to have that date, I thought was amazing. But he just sat there, and it was about how good he looked with me on his arm. And so then he ordered another drink. So all I had to do was to drink the wine because, it was just so awkward. He wouldn't talk to me. And then I said, I just need to nip to the ladies. And he said, don't be too long because I'll look stupid if I'm on my own. and I said, okay. So I went to the ladies and I just thought, I'm not going back. You just forgave me.
You just exited stage left.
I couldn't do it. That's just silly.
That sounds to me like all ego. But yeah, that was a red flag, and good for you. It didn't matter how good looking he was or how everybody said he's the guy. You were like, this doesn't This doesn't feel right. I was in Florida at the time. This is many years ago. And I had my job, and I was also working as a makeup artist. And so I worked at a huge retailer, and I think I worked Monday, Wednesday, Friday night. So it's like a Friday night, and I'd go to this restaurant right out in the bar. I mean, we have the mall, and then there's a restaurant. So I went to the bar of this restaurant, and the bartender knew I'd be coming in on a Friday, and then I would interview guys from one of the dating websites. I'd set them up like for every 15 or 20 minutes or 30, like I could only stay for a short amount of time. So this guy comes in, and I had spoken to him a couple times on the phone, and he asked me what kind of music I liked. So he actually made a cassette. This is how long ago it was, a cassette of music for me. And he said he also was singing in part of it to me. So I thought this was really nice or very weird. So I went with weird because at this point, I'm not taking any more chances. So it turns out he was he was going to leave, he was paying for his check, and he reaches into his pocket and he had another cassette. And I was like, "Oh, is that for me?" He goes, "No, I made that for the next person I'm meeting." I was like, "Good for you, because somebody else is coming right after this." And of course, none of them worked out, and the restaurant went out of business. So.
Why is that? Why does this kind of thing happen? And I'd love to share with you and our audience that it's probably because we're trying to be something that we're not. We're trying to impress or be something that we think the other person wants to be with or see. And my invitation is to be yourself, is to be 100% authentically you. And when you rock up being authentically you, there is no red flags, there is no uncomfortableness. You're simply being you. And that means that you have a much easier and better time. I don't do online dating because I don't know, I just couldn't do all the pretense. And from my perspective, I always feel that I don't have a problem in socializing or meeting people and, getting on with people. And so I'm very socially active in terms of when I am out. And I feel that I would meet somebody when I'm out and about, because they'll be liking the same kind of things that I like too. I know that might sound a little old-fashioned, but I just couldn't do all the pretense stuff that seems to go on, especially in the online arena. And it just feels like a lot of work to me. But if I meet somebody at a meditation and we're sharing, our experience, or I meet somebody at a concert, then it just flows because there's a conversation of similar and same interests. So that's my give in terms of be authentically you, because you can't go wrong when you're being yourself.
Great points, Caroline. I want to just, as we come to the end of the show, believe it or not, I want to just have us talk just for a couple of minutes. What if you're in a relationship with someone, you've been with them for a long time, and you suspect they're not telling you the truth about something, one thing or another? What are some behaviors that people demonstrate that you can look for to say, you know what, I don't think they're telling me the whole story, and they were doing this, and now I think that that's a sign? Are there any telltale signs?
Yes, there are. When I was married, I actually knew when my then husband was lying, and I told him what he did so that he just wouldn't lie to me. I said, please don't lie to me. I'd rather you just not say anything than lie. And it was very obvious. When somebody's lying and it's an outright lie, they will tend not to feel comfortable to look at you in the eyes when they're lying. So they'll look down or away. And the other thing that they sometimes do is, especially if it's somebody that's gone to, sort of a formal, boarding school, or, sort of gone, Middle England, I call it, sort of people that are very well educated. They will tend to cover their mouth while they're lying. So they'll sort of do this, and then they'll say what they need to say. That's the lie, and then they'll move their hand away from their mouth. And other things that they will do is they can't give you detail. If they're giving you a lie, it's very difficult to give detail. So you won't get the information. It'll just be very scarce information. And when they're giving you the information, they'll kind of look away. Or it might be too detailed and they're still looking away. So the biggest red flag is when they're not looking at you and telling you, when they're looking away, down, or covering their mouth when they're speaking to you, or if you're actually asking them questions about, oh, what have you been up to, and you're pushing for information. They might sort of cover their ears, or they might sort of cover their eyes. And it's the body language of a person, even though somebody's lying verbally, our body has never learnt to lie, and it can't lie. So even if you are verbally lying, the body will not lie. And so the body will be expressing everything that's truthful. And it's like sort of, the three wise monkeys: see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. And that's where it comes from. And children do that. They're expressing themselves in that way. If they don't want to hear something, they'll always cover their ears. They don't want to see something, they'll cover their eyes. And so these are very, very big telling signs that somebody's not being truthful.
I love this. It's so easy for us to think about if somebody does that, demonstrates that behavior. I think also, in addition, something that I have found is they don't ever answer the question.
Yes, there's
around and around and around, and we never go straight through and answer the question. And then when you call them on it, they'll say, what's wrong with you? Of course I told you this information, and they still don't ever answer the question, but now they're starting an argument and they're putting it back on you. You have a problem.
I call it the politician's response. Because if you ask a politician, and I don't, this is not to be horrible or anything like that, but if you ask a politician, they never actually give you a straight answer because they want to be all things to all people. They don't want to upset anybody. And so a politician will kind of say what you want to hear, and it'll be in a roundabout way, a generalistic way. And so I call it the politician's answer, because they don't want to upset you, and essentially they're saying what they think you want to hear. But you will feel that it's not true. You will feel that there's sort of, why don't you just come straight out and tell me? Do you want to see me that night or not? Because if you don't, that's okay.
Exactly. Well, you know what else, Caroline, something on this specific subject is there will still be cases where the person's not telling you the truth, but you're still in denial. You're going to find more proof. You are going to prove that the person, you already know they're lying. You feel it. You see it. You hear it. But yet it's not enough for you. You have to literally catch them in the lie. And at that point, to me, now you're in it even further, as opposed to just taking a step back and saying, okay, I'm going to do maybe one of three things. I'm going to accept the fact that they're lying, and then I'm not going to accept the fact, and then, or I'm just going to be in the middle and just be a victim and just, woe is me. I think they're lying to me. Boo hoo. What should I do?
There's a really simple answer to that. And that is that we're here for a really short time. And I feel it's important to be with people that want to be with you, that you want to be with. And life just feels too short to go into these games, and I'm not a game person. I'm very straight. I actually had a friend that I've known for a very long time, and he called me. He's been quite unwell, and he called me and said that he said, "Caroline, you're direct and clear." And he said, "I love that." He said, "Because some people can be direct but not clear." He says, "You are direct and clear." And because I am like that, I prefer the other person to be like that too. That we do get caught up in those scenarios where we know something's not working and yet we still stay there because we have a fear of losing that friendship, that relationship. But what about there might be something better if we let that relationship or friendship go? There might be something much better that's much more appropriate for you if you let go, if you lose the attachment to that person, lose the attachment to what you want them to be. And when you let go, what is real will always be there. You'll never lose what's real.
So well said. And what a great way to close out the show. It's basically you've been straddling the fence. And either way you go, it's not going to feel too good. So get off the fence and be true to yourself. And when those feelings start to come up, regardless of what the situation is, say to yourself, I have this feeling in the pit of my stomach and it doesn't feel right. I've got to walk away. And I have to say this every time I have not followed my intuition, I got burned. And I knew it. I knew it. I should be following this path or doing this. And it was all uncomfortable in here in the gut reaction. But yet, whatever it is, you want to make the other person happy, or you have this fear of losing out or missing out or whatever it is. And I just hope that this show and what we're sharing here today will inspire someone to really listen to their intuition. And when red flags are presenting themselves, to identify what it is and act accordingly.
And it comes down to feeling comfortable in you. When you know you and you're comfortable in yourself, what will happen is you will attract somebody else that will be the same. And if you're not comfortable in you, the people that you will interact and attract into your life will be the same. And so when you're feeling better and different, those people that are not secure will literally leave you. And it's nothing that you did or said. It's just that your vibration is different and you're vibrating at a different frequency to that person. So nobody did anything wrong. It's just that that friendship, that relationship is over and it's time to move on because somebody is waiting for you. Friendship, relationship that will come in, that's vibrating more at your frequency and more of who you are.
Absolutely beautiful, Caroline. Can you please let our audience know how to book in for a free 30-minute Zoom stress buster consultation?
Well, you can email me on NoMoreStress@live.co.uk. That's the 3 words, NoMoreStress@live.co.uk. And tell me where you're from and what the problem is. And we can schedule a time to literally bust your stress on either Zoom or Skype.
Thank you, Caroline. I really appreciate it. It's another fun show with you. We'll be coming right back shortly with my Talking Heads episode, which is what do you do now that you started the business? Caroline, I will see you on Sunday for the reunion show. For those of you who are not aware, we have a special event. This is the 3rd one this year, the 3rd and last one, where we get together people who have been on our platform before. Mr. Alcini and I are co-hosting, and we will be starting out live at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is 3 p.m. British Summer Time. Caroline is on in the first hour, and our show is not an interview. It is a promotion platform where each of our guests will be promoting their business, their services, and their offerings. Before we sign off, Caroline has a course that is available right now today, and it is called Chakra Psychology. Tell us a little bit more about this.
Chakra Psychology and the Healing Journey. It's a very extensive introduction to the 7 major chakras, which are related to the 7 major glands of the body. And so anything physical, emotional, mental, behavioral, when there's an imbalance, that's what the symptom is. And I go through the 7 major chakras, and it's also a healing journey. So once you're in awareness and insight and understanding, that's when you step into a place of healing and moving towards a solution rather than being in the state of symptom and pain. And it is a healing activation to balance and clear the 7 major chakras. And it also is extremely interesting in terms of you will understand more about what doesn't work for you and why it doesn't work. The invitation is for you to go and experience this activation of the 7 major chakras so that you experience the 7 chakras being balanced and you experience whole body healing.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you very much, Caroline. And also, for those of you who don't know, a last message, we have a new website coming that is specifically for people who are interested in elevated listening skills. It's the elevatedlisteners.com. I have my first meeting about the website tomorrow. And so if you have become certified as an elevated listener, then you will be able to have your headshot, your certificate, and then information about you. We will be spotlighting only elevated listeners and people interested in listening. We will have availability for the courses like Caroline's, and we'll have all kinds of promotion. Anything, if you're an elevated listener, you have going on in your life that you want to promote, you'll be able to promote it on this site. So I'm really looking forward to that. As I mentioned, I'm beginning work on that tomorrow.
I look forward to seeing you on Sunday for the reunion show.
I look forward to it as well. I'm going to get changed before our next show, which I mentioned is my Talking Heads episode. I'll see everybody shortly. Thank you, Caroline. Have a beautiful weekend.
Bye-bye. You too.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.